The influence of the Antichrist, according to Mariano de Jesus's vision, would extend into every sphere of human life, infiltrating governments, financial institutions, and even individual hearts and minds. The promise of power and prosperity would be the lure used to attract followers, while the reality would be an erosion of freedom and a spread of conflict and disunity. The scenario in the United States, in particular, is ripe for the emergence of such a figure. A country marked by its global leadership and cultural influence is also fertile ground for a leader who promises order and greatness in times of uncertainty. Growing political and social polarization only accentuates the need for vigilance and preparedness, a call that Mariano de Jesus made repeatedly in his preaching and writings. At this critical moment in history, Mariano de Jesus's words serve as a clarion call for all those concerned about the future of humanity. It is essential that we remain alert to the signs around us, both heavenly and earthly, and that we prepare our spirits and communities to resist the seductions of the Antichrist. Preparation involves reinforcing our values, educating ourselves about the dangers of large-scale deception, and strengthening our institutions against corruption and manipulation. These predictions, which seem more pertinent with each passing day, point to a global scenario in which pain and suffering will become constant presences, challenging our social, political, and spiritual structures. The frequency and intensity of natural disasters have increased, with more violent storms, devastating fires, and extreme weather events occurring with alarming regularity around the world. These events not only cause immediate loss of life and property, but also trigger ripple effects that affect the food security, housing, and economic stability of the most vulnerable populations. Wars, on the other hand, are not confined to distant battlefields. Ideological, cultural, and political conflicts are inflaming tensions within nations, transforming once peaceful cities into confrontation zones where fear and uncertainty rule. These battles, both physical and metaphorical, are tearing at the fabric of the global community, leaving despair and dislocation in their wake. In addition to the physical disasters, we face a moral crisis of equally devastating proportions. The erosion of fundamental ethical values, exacerbated by an era of misinformation and polarization, is compromising the ability of entire societies to discern the truth and act on principles of justice and compassion. This moral crisis is fueling both indifference to the suffering of others and the proliferation of injustices, further widening social divisions and inequality. This bleak outlook, prophesied with startling accuracy, is not a sentence of inescapable despair, but a call to action. It is essential that we recognize the seriousness of these warnings and mobilize to mitigate their impacts where possible, and prepare our communities for the challenges that are sure to come. This involves strengthening our emergency response systems, investing in resilient infrastructure, and fostering a culture of accountability and mutual care. Don't miss out. Sign up now and join a community that seeks to understand and transform the world. Each video we post is a window to new discoveries and reflections. Click and join. Perhaps most important is the need for a moral and spiritual rethinking, a return to values that promote peace, sustainability, and respect for human dignity. Every individual, every community, and every nation has a role to play in rebuilding a world that values life and well-being over profit and power. In recent years, we have witnessed a growing number of scandals that undermine public trust and disillusion citizens. Once respected leaders are often caught in acts of corruption, from bribery and embezzlement of public funds to abuses of power that benefit the few at the expense of the many. The betrayal of that trust is doubly painful when it comes from religious leaders, who should epitomize righteousness and guide their congregations with examples of virtue and integrity. This rising tide of corruption reveals a deeper crisis, a compromised leadership that, instead of being guided by ethical and just principles, chooses to follow paths of convenience and personal profit. The result is a political and religious landscape in which principles are often sacrificed on the altar of opportunism. The impact of this corruption is vast and varied, affecting not only the effectiveness of public policies and the distribution of resources, but also social cohesion. When citizens perceive that their leaders are engaged in corruption, trust in the system erodes. This skepticism infiltrates every aspect of civic life, resulting in widespread cynicism and political apathy, which diminishes democratic participation and perpetuates a cycle of disillusionment and disengagement. Furthermore, corruption in religious leadership has devastating consequences for people's faith. When religious leaders stray, the damage goes beyond the material consequences. It touches the soul of the community. Faith, for many, is a refuge and a source of strength, but when tainted by corruption, it can become a source of despair and disbelief. Given this grim scenario, it is imperative that we take strong action to restore integrity and ethics at all levels of leadership. This is a call not only for oversight bodies and justice systems to step up their vigilance and enforcement, but also for every citizen. It is crucial that civil society remains vigilant and demanding, pressing for full transparency and accountability from its leaders. Education also plays a vital role in this fight. Through robust civic education, we can cultivate a new generation of citizens and leaders who value integrity above material success and deeply understand the principles of democracy and moral ethics. Combating corruption also requires a reassessment of our values as a society. We need to collectively reaffirm our commitment to justice and fairness, rejecting any form of corruption, no matter how normalized it may seem. It is time to revive the spirit of integrity and accountability that should guide our nation. This grim outlook is seen daily in the news and on the streets of cities across the United States, where political and social divisions have fueled a vicious cycle of alienation and hostility. Debates once conducted with mutual respect and consideration now often degenerate into heated confrontations, with little or no willingness to find common ground. This polarization is not limited to the public or digital space. It infiltrates families, separating friends and relatives with ideological barriers that are increasingly difficult to overcome. Violence, both verbal and physical, has become a frequent tool used to express discontent or impose opinions, shaking the foundations of communities that once thrived on diversity and dialogue. This tumultuous environment is a breeding ground for further disagreement and confrontation, as each incident fuels a cycle of retaliation and distrust. The causes of these conflicts are many and varied, but they all contribute to the perfect storm of discord and division. Economic inequality, racial injustice, cultural and political divides. All these factors combine to create a climate where consensus seems impossible and compromise is seen as a betrayal of personal principles. The fragmentation of families is particularly painful and destructive. The home, traditionally a haven of security and unconditional love, is now often the scene of bitter disputes that reflect broader divisions in society. Younger generations are growing up in an environment where conflict is the norm, which can have lasting effects on their emotional development and worldviews. Given this troubling scenario, it is imperative for all those who value social cohesion and peace to seek ways to heal divisions and restore a sense of community. Education plays a crucial role in this process, teaching new generations to value dialogue over confrontation and to respect differences while seeking the common good. Community initiatives that promote understanding and reconciliation are also vital. Programs that encourage dialogue between divergent groups and activities that bring people together around common causes can help rebuild trust and reduce tensions. In addition, leaders at all levels, whether political, religious, or community, must strive to be examples of integrity and conciliation. In many nations, including the most developed, we are witnessing the same pattern. Wealth accumulated at the top of the economic pyramid reaches stratospheric levels, while the middle and lower classes struggle to maintain a decent standard of living. Globalization and technological advancement, while bringing numerous benefits, have also facilitated a restructuring of work and the economy that favors capital over labor. Ready to challenge your perspectives? Subscribe to our channel and embark on a journey of knowledge and inspiration. Your worldview will never be the same again. Click now. Well-paid jobs with secure benefits are becoming rare, replaced by temporary positions, freelance work, and contracts without guarantees, forcing many to accept precarious working conditions just to survive. At the same time, the cost of living continues to escalate, further exacerbating inequality. Quality education, affordable housing, and healthcare are becoming luxuries rather than basic rights, creating nearly insurmountable barriers for those born outside the spheres of privilege. This concentration of wealth is pernicious not only because of its intrinsic injustice, but because it carries with it the power to influence and corrupt the political and social spheres. Economic elites have the resources to shape public policy and media discourse, often to the detriment of the common good, and with little or no checks or balances. Democracy, which should be a system of equal representation, risks turning into a de facto oligarchy, where decisions favor the rich and powerful. History shows us that extreme inequalities can lead to social discontent, instability, and violence. When a large segment of the population feels wronged and hopeless, the social fabric begins to unravel. Desperation and lack of opportunities can fuel crime and extremism, undermining security and social peace. It is therefore imperative that we recognize and address this crisis of inequality, not as a mere economic challenge, but as a matter of ethical and moral urgency. We need to implement policies that not only alleviate poverty, but that fundamentally restructure our economic order to promote equity and sustainability. Progressive tax reforms, investments in education and public health, guarantees of living wages, and social protections for the most vulnerable are just the beginning. We also need stricter regulation of corporate and financial practices to ensure that the wealth generated benefits society as a whole, not just an elite few. In addition, civil society has a crucial role to play. Non-governmental organizations, social movements, and individual citizens must be vigilant and active in demanding economic justice. Through civic engagement, we can push for meaningful change and create a culture that values equality, dignity, and solidarity over material gain. The erosion of moral values can be seen in many areas of American society. In the political arena, disregard for democratic norms and heightened polarization have led to an environment where lies, smears, and abuse of power have become commonplace. Elected leaders who should serve the public and exemplify integrity and respect for their office often descend to personal attacks and blatant manipulation, sacrificing the collective interests in favor of personal or partisan agendas. In the corporate world, immorality manifests itself in unfair practices that prioritize profits over ethics. Corruption scandals, labor exploitation, and disregard for environmental impacts are symptoms of a corporate culture that often values financial gain over social and environmental responsibility. Such behavior not only harms individuals and communities, but also undermines public trust in the capitalist system as a whole. In the personal and social spheres, the rise of immorality is evident in the growth of behaviors that disregard basic norms of coexistence. Cyberbullying, misinformation, online and offline harassment, and other forms of verbal and physical violence are indicative of a decline in mutual respect and consideration for others. Young people, in particular, face significant challenges navigating a digital environment where exposure to inappropriate content and peer pressure can lead to risky behavior and a devaluation of authentic human relationships. This bleak outlook is further complicated by the weakening of religious institutions, which have historically been bulwarks of morality and ethics. Church attendance is in decline, and with it, for many, adherence to faith-based ethical principles. As churches and other religious institutions grapple with their own scandals and increasing secularization, their ability to positively influence the moral norms of society is diminishing. The disregard for religious traditions and values reflects not only a cultural shift, but also an identity crisis that affects many individuals' sense of purpose and direction. Without a clear set of moral and ethical norms, people of all ages find it increasingly difficult to discern right from wrong, or to understand the importance of living a life that values the common good. In the face of these challenges, it is crucial that every citizen, leader, and institution in the United States take an active role in rebuilding the moral fabric of the nation. Subscribe to our channel and be the first to receive content that touches the heart and provokes the mind. Each video is a step towards a deeper understanding of our reality. Don't miss it. Ethics education, from childhood through adulthood, must be a priority, as must the promotion of positive role models in all sectors of society. Families, schools, businesses, and religious and political leaders have a shared responsibility to cultivate an environment where integrity, respect, and honesty are not only valued, but demanded. Secularization in the United States has accelerated, driven by a growing skepticism toward traditional institutions and an individualism that prioritizes me over we. This shift is not just a matter of declining church or synagogue attendance. It is a sweeping transformation that affects the way Americans understand life, purpose, and human interconnection. With this shift comes an erosion of communal values and a weakening of the ethical principles that once guided social and personal interactions. This shift away from spiritual roots is accompanied by a cooling of attitudes toward religious authority. Scandals and controversies involving leaders of various denominations have undermined public trust. When these leaders fail not only in their pastoral duties, but in upholding a standard of moral conduct, the impact extends beyond their own communities. Such failures reverberate throughout society, fueling the perception that religion may no longer serve as a reliable moral compass. In addition, American popular culture, with its powerful media influence, often glorifies materialistic and self-indulgent values that contrast sharply with traditional teachings about altruism and virtue. This not only challenges younger generations to find meaning that transcends consumerism and instantaneity, but also contributes to a collective identity crisis, where the sense of purpose and belonging is often questioned. Responding to this spiritual and moral crisis requires deep reflection and concrete action. It is essential that religious communities renew their commitment to transparency and integrity, rebuilding lost trust and representing themselves as sources of wisdom and moral guidance. In addition, these institutions must find ways to effectively communicate and connect with an increasingly diverse and questioning population, responding to their concerns with authenticity and relevance. In the educational realm, reintroducing discussions of ethics, philosophy, and religion in schools can provide a space for young people to explore questions of meaning and morality in a structured and reflective way. This educational approach is not about indoctrination, but about opening spaces for dialogue and critical reflection on the values we wish to cultivate as a society. In addition, civic and community engagement, fueled by an understanding that we all have a role to play in healing and enriching our community, can strengthen social bonds and foster a sense of shared responsibility. Volunteering, active participation in community organizations and social movements can revitalize a sense of purpose and commitment to the common good.